So this lesson is all about what we call the order of operations. And before we talk about what we in math call the order of operations, first we need to talk about what we mean by order of operations. Now, an operation, as we saw in another video lesson, are just things like addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, raising something to a power, like 2 to the third power, even using parentheses to put some operations separate from each other is a kind of operation. And so each of these things, those manipulations that we do with one or more numbers, those things are called operations. And an order, in this case, we mean order like to put in a specific prescribed step-by-step way of doing something. So our order of operations is just a step-by-step process for going through the different operations that we might have in a complicated math problem. And the question of why do we need the order of operations can be answered by looking at this problem here. Read from left to right, it says 4 plus 5 times 3 minus 12. I want you to pause the video here real quick. These aren't the problems at the end of the video. And I want you to evaluate this expression in two ways. First, to go from left to right. And second is to do the multiplication first. Then take your answer and then go from left to right. So go ahead and pause the video real quick. Again, these are not in the questions at the end. Just pause it, go through that, and then come back to us. So if we work from left to right, then the first thing we're going to do is the 4 plus 5. That gives us a 9 times 3 minus 12. 9 times 3 is 27 minus 12. And 27 minus 12 is 15. On the other hand, if we do the multiplication first, then we have 4 plus 5 times 3, which is 15, minus 12. And now we're going to go from left to right. 4 times 15 is 19 minus 12, and 19 minus 12 is 7. So here, you can tell that depending on how we solve this problem, or how we evaluate this problem, rather, we go from left to right as opposed to doing the multiplication first and then moving from left to right, we get two different answers. And so we can't have two completely different correct numbers to be the evaluation of 4 plus 5 times 3 minus 12. It just doesn't work for us. So we need to have one specific way of going through this problem so that in the end the evaluation is correct. And that is what we call our order of operations. And we have an acronym to remember it by, and that is PEMDAS. But then we're going to add this FB down at the end, which you may not have seen before. So PEMDAS FB, or something along those lines. And the way that we remember it is by using the phrase, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, and then add the FB. So please excuse my dear Aunt Sally for burping. And so the P stands for parentheses, the E for exponents and powers, M for multiplication, D for division, A for addition, S for subtraction, and FB for fraction bar. And we'll see what that means here in a second. So, parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction, fraction bar. Now, I've split this up in this way for a specific reason. First, you're going to go through, and we just follow from top to bottom. First, we're going to go through and solve anything, or evaluate rather, anything that's in parentheses. So we could have 3 plus 7 minus 12, all of that multiplied by 2, but because they're in parentheses first, we'll solve it first. E stands for exponents, so we'll solve anything with a power or an exponent. As a quick review, if we have 3 plus 5 quantity squared, we need to do what's inside parentheses first and then the exponent. Now I've left multiplication and division together because you don't do all the multiplication and then all the division from left to right. You start from left to right and do each multiplication and division step in order from left to right. But you leave out, for the moment, the addition and subtraction, which all get done after all of the multiplication and division are done. And finally, if there is a fraction bar, you do the division indicated by the fraction bar. Now we'll see a few of these things as examples so that we can go through and see how this entirely works. And let's look at one of those now. The first, we'll start with something basic like we had before. 12 minus 2 times 3 plus 8. Now I've included the order of operations here to the left so we can look at it, we can go through step by step and make sure that we've got everything. There are no parentheses, so our P is all set. There are no exponents, so our E is all set. Now we look at multiplication and division from left to right. Well, I see one multiplication here. 2 times 3 is 6. So 12 minus 6 plus 8. Then from left to right, we do our addition and subtraction. 12 minus 6 is 2 plus 8. 2 plus 8 is 10. And so 12 minus 2 times 3 plus 8 is 10. If we look at another example, we have 8 times, in parentheses, 5 minus 2 plus 12 divided by 3. A little bit more complicated. Again, we just have to go from the start of PEMDAS FBA to the end. We have parentheses, 5 minus 2 is 3, so it leaves us 8 times 3 plus 12 divided by 3. Parentheses are done. We have no exponents. Now we do have some multiplication and division from left to right. 8 times 3 is 24. I'm going to skip the addition for this moment and become 12 divided by 3. 12 divided by 3 is 4, so 24 plus 4 is what we get on our multiplication and division steps. Again, this one first, then this one. Addition and subtraction, 24 plus 4 is 28, and we don't have a fraction bar to worry about. So 8 times the quantity 5 minus 2 plus 12 divided by 3 evaluates to 28. And finally, a slightly longer example so that we can see each of the different parts of PEMDAS FBA in action. Let's look at this example. We have 3 plus 5 times 2 squared minus, in parentheses, 6 divided by 2, all over the fraction bar, 4 plus 6 times 1. And so notice that we do, in fact, have a fraction bar here. But what we're going to do is we're going to leave that fraction bar till the end. We'll evaluate the numerator, evaluate the denominator, and then use that fraction bar to mean division at the end of the problem. So let's start off with the numerator, or rather, let's start off with parentheses. We do have one set of parentheses, so that gives us 3 plus 5 times 2 squared minus 3 all over 4 plus 6 times 1, because there are no parentheses in our denominator. And so, move this back here. So that is our first step, parentheses, check. Second step, exponents. We have one exponent here, 2 squared, so evaluating that, we get 3 plus 5 times 4 minus 3 all over 4 plus 6 times 1. And then we've gone through our exponents. Now multiplication and division, we already did the one division because that fell under the parentheses. But now we're going to do the multiplication, and we'll do both numerator and denominator here. That down. Multiplication and division. So we have 5 times 4 and 6 times 1. 3 plus 20 minus 3 over 4 plus 6. Going now with addition and subtraction. Let's take a look at the numerator separately just for a second. We have 3 plus 20 minus 3, which ends up as 23 minus 3, which is the same as 20. So we have 20 in our numerator, and then 6 plus 10 is 10. And finally, we have our fraction bar. The fraction bar means divided by, in this case, so we have 20 divided by 10, and that eventually gives us 20 divided by 10 with 2. So the evaluated form of 3 plus 5 times 2 squared minus 6 divided by 2 in parentheses all over 4 plus 6 times 1 eventually just boils down to 2. And that is the answer that we're looking for. So I'm going to ask you to go ahead, and you're going to pause the video here in a second and work through each of the following orders of operations problems. Now remember that in each of these problems, you are looking to go through the PEMDAS FBA order, parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction, and finally, if necessary, the fraction bar. So go ahead and pause the video, work on those, and we will come back and take a look at those answers. All right, well, let's take a look first at numbers 1 and 2. I'm going to take a second and write PEMDAS down the center. For number 1, We have no parentheses, we have no exponents. We do have some multiplication and division. 28 divided by 8 is 3. So 11 plus 3 gets to 14. That is our last operation. On the right-hand side for number 2, we don't have any parentheses, we don't have any exponents. We do have some multiplication. 3 times 4 is 12. And 2 times 2 is 4. So this is 16 minus, because we're going to take this sign down, 12 plus 4. And now from left to right, addition and subtraction. 16 minus 12 is 4, plus 4, and 4 plus 4 is 8. So number 1 is 14, number 2 is 8. Moving on to numbers 3 and 4, we have, for number 3, let's write PEMDAS FBA again. We can probably ignore the FBA because there's no fraction bars here, but PEMDAS FBA. Let's start with number 3, parentheses. Now looking in these parentheses, we have multiple operations. So we have to follow the order of operations inside the parentheses. We always follow the order of operations. So here we do the multiplication first. 4 plus 15, which becomes 19. So 3 cubed minus 3 cubed minus 19. Now remembering what 3 cubed means, because it is an exponent. 3 cubed is the same as 3 times 3 times 3, which gives us 27 minus 19, and 27 minus 19 is 8. And then finally for number 4, we're looking within the parentheses again, because we have parentheses to start off with. So 12 divided by 3 is 4. 2 plus 4 squared divided by 6. 2 plus 4 is 6, so 6 squared divided by 6. And note that we have to do the 2 plus 4 first, because that's within the parentheses, and parentheses is our first step in PEMDAS. Now exponents, we have 6 squared. 6 squared is the same as 6 times 6, so we have 36 divided by 6. And finally go through our last operation, which is division and multiplication division, and get 6. 36 divided by 6 is 6. So the answer to number 4 is 6. And finally, number 5, we'll write PEMDAS FBA over here on the left-hand side so that we can remember. And so here we go. Parentheses first. That gives us 60 divided by 5 plus 2 to the 5th minus 24 all over 4 plus 3 times 3 minus 1. Now we have some exponents that we have to deal with. So let's look at the exponents. The exponents is 2 to the 5th. And now if you go through 2 to the 5th, multiply 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, you end up with 32, which is the answer to 2 to the 5th. So I'm just going to go ahead and write that in there and move this over here. 60 divided by 5 plus 32 minus 24 all over 4 plus 3 times 3 minus 1. Next, that's parentheses, that's exponents. Now multiplication and division from, that doesn't help us. That's 7. 7 times 3 plus 1. Now we get to our multiplication and division. We have division up top. We have 12 plus 32 minus 24. On the bottom we have multiplication also, 21 minus 2. And then finally looking at the addition and subtraction that will take us through to the rest of this. 12 plus 32 is 44. And 44 minus 24 is 20. So the numerator becomes 20. The denominator, 21 minus 1 is 20. This entire thing ends up as 1. So the answer to number 5 is 1. One last time as a review, the order of operations, the steps that we follow: parentheses, exponents, multiplication and division, addition and subtraction, and fraction bar.